down, shut me out when I needed you. Oh, oh, I'm gonna burn this bridge. I ain't never coming back. No, I ain't never coming back. No, no, no. That girl you know is gone. You can tease in the past. Oh, I ain't never coming back. No, no, no. You lit this fire in me because you never believed that there was fire in me. Now you can't put it out. I'm gonna burn this bridge. I ain't never coming back. No, I ain't never coming back. No, no, no.
Last time we met, we had a great class. We covered quite a few concepts, and the reason why we covered those concepts in particular are because they will definitely be on the exam. Anybody surprised? Yeah, so those will definitely be on the exam, and the things we're going to talk about today are also going to be on the exam. In fact, today I'm going to share with you some very specific things about the course that will help prepare you for the exam. So if you don't usually take notes, today is a good day to take notes. If you need a sheet of paper, anybody? You got a pencil? Pen? You got a pen? Okay, you all ready? All right. So this agenda really hasn't changed much because that's actually from the first day we met. The focus of the additional several weeks of our course leading up to the exam. So I emailed that to you guys, and I posted it onto Blackboard the day that we met last. And so this is still a really good overview of the major topics that are going to be on the exam. So let me just say it one more time. This is like a really good overview of the major topics that will be on the exam. So there's no surprises, right? This is what I shared with you the last time we met, and that hasn't changed. So let's just move forward. Some of these things we're going to go through quicker than others. Some things we may not have a chance to stop and go into in a lot of detail, but if I mention it today in class, it's definitely going to be on the exam. So the purpose of today's class really is to try and keep my promise that I would help everyone get 100 on the exam, right? And I made that implied promise. I keep saying, I hope everybody gets 100 on the exam. I want everybody to get an A in this class, but actions speak louder than words, right? So I have a plan for your success. The best students ever. Have I told you that you're the best students ever? You are. You are the best students ever. All right. What operations managers do? Write this down. Some of the key functions of operations managers. This is in chapter 1. Planning. Planning, organizing, leading, controlling, and staffing. So the 5 key functions are planning, organizing, leading, controlling, and staffing. Those are 5 key functions.
Controlling and what?
Staffing. Remember last time we talked about productivity, and I told you that productivity is the ratio of outputs over inputs. We're going to look at a simple calculation. So one of the things we're interested in operations management is productivity. So how do we determine our level of productivity? We have to have a metric. Well, we can compute the level of productivity. It's simply the ratio of somebody? Right. All right. So let's say we produce 1,000 units. Let's say we produce 1,000 iPhone 7. And the labor required to produce it is 250 hours. So in order to produce 1,000 iPhone 7, we're assuming it'll take 250 hours. That means that the productivity is 4 units of labor per hour. Now, in of itself, that may not mean much. But the key is that we want to increase the level of productivity. So what do you think 4 is a big number or a small number? What's important is that our focus is on increasing the level of productivity. So we need to figure out a way to get that number to 6. How can we do that? How can we get that number to 6? Yes, go ahead.
You take a look at back organize better so the workers have things better direction. So you're going to put the process.
Yeah, so the layout strategy, we can organize the equipment differently so that what's going to happen?
Probably going to need more efficient, faster.
So faster means what in this case?
That takes less hours to more units.
Okay, so what is it? Mike, what Mike is saying is that the labor hour used might be only 150 hours. So then what? What would the level of productivity be then? So if it's only 150 hours instead of 250 labor hours, then what's the level of productivity? So approximately 7. So it's 1,000 divided by 150. So what Mike said is one way that we could increase productivity is by reducing the number of hours needed to produce that quantity. So we're still producing 1,000, but what Mike said is that he's figured out a way to do it in 150 hours instead of 250 hours. It's likely that Joe will get a raise and promotion because of that. That's a very good job, Mike. What else? What are the other alternatives? So we can reduce the labor hours. What's another alternative? So we want to increase the level of productivity. Yes, go ahead. the level of productivity. If you had to increase the level of productivity, how could you do it? So we heard so far that we could increase the number of units produced. Right, Jackie? Increase the number of units produced. So instead of 1,000 units, we're going to try to produce 1,500 units. Another option is to not increase the number of units, but be able to do it quicker, do it in less time. So reduce the time it takes to produce the same number of units. All right, so this is a summary of what we just talked about. Process improvement. And the increase is our relative, as we discussed. So you ready for that? That's the question on the exam. All right, 10 decision areas. You want to talk about this? So this is actually a great overview of the entire course. These are the 10 decision areas that we talked about. Design systems and services, managing quality, process and capacity strategy, location strategy, layout strategy, human resources and job design, supply chain management, inventory management, scheduling and maintenance. All right, so you need to know what the 10 strategic decision areas are. Now, for those of you who have actually doing the homework, it's actually a very good thing because the main focus, in addition to what we talked about today, is coming from those homework questions. So you don't need to know everything in the chapters, but you certainly need to know the topics that I drew your attention to in the homework. So the topics discussed in the homework are on the exam for sure. Hey, Sophia, the topics that are discussed in the homework are on the exam, right? So don't think your time doing the homework was in vain. It's not. Those are the key topics. Those are many of the key topics that are going to be on the exam. So not everything from chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, right? But certainly the topics for those chapters that are in the homework. Do you notice that in every single chapter in this book they talk about ethics? Every single chapter in this book they talk about ethics. Last year I was at a conference for top business schools, and they had quite a few senior executives talking at the conference. For example, they had the chairman from Deloitte, they had a senior vice president from Johnson & Johnson, and you know what? They all said the same thing, which we all knew already, but it was good to hear it again. What do you think they said? They said that the expectation is that at a minimum, the students will know the subject matter, but what they look for when they're hiring is individuals that could formulate opinions and make decisions within an ethical context. That was one of the major takeaways. So, executives get paid millions of dollars, millions and millions of dollars because of their opinion, right? They provide opinions. What does the executives do? They make decisions based on their opinions. So they get paid a lot of money for their opinion. And what are some of the issues that they have to address? Well, some of them are, like very relevant to this course, is fueling their factories. How do you fuel a factory? So is it going to be with fossil fuel? Is it going to be with coal? Is it going to be with oil? They're getting paid a lot of money to give their opinion as it relates to solar energy. As an alternative. So their focus on sustainability and ethics is significant. And they expect the people that they bring into the organization are going to share that focus. So like the assignments that we completed, we followed the questionnaires. The purpose is to bring your attention to some of the key issues that executives are facing today. And what I did was ask for your opinion. Why? Because when you go on an interview, they're going to ask you your opinion. And you need to have already formulated one. So I worked in corporate America for a long time too, and so I'm not surprised to hear what they said at this conference. But you need to be able to talk intelligently about those issues. Because these are issues that are near and dear to their heart. They're all sitting there trying to figure out, well, should we convert this manufacturing facility to solar power? Questions about that? Thank you. It's still raining. Right? Questions about those assignments? And so I told them the first day that I can't teach you the ethical. But also, not only that, even if I was to stand up here and talk about philosophical concepts, I also mentioned the first day that what I wanted for us to experience is show and tell. So not just me telling you stuff, telling you, but showing you and getting you to think about these issues. So if you want to go back and look at those questions again, you can. And I would encourage you to do so because that's exactly like what they're going to ask you on an interview. Because they don't ask you, are you ethical? What they do is they ask you behavioral type questions that require you to provide your opinion, like the way that I did in those questionnaires. That's the way interviews are structured, or behavioral. Are you ethical? Yes. No, they're not going to ask you that. They're going to say, what if you were an executive and you had to decide, what would you do? What's your opinion? So it's different. I'm different. Yeah, I'm different. Yeah, it's different. I know you don't do that in other classes. But believe me, this is for your benefit. And if they don't raise those issues, during the interview, then you should raise those topics. And they say, do you have any questions? Is there anything you would like to add? You say, oh yeah, there's a lot of things I'd like to add. And then you hit them up with all the ethical dilemmas and sustainability and environmental protection topics in those questionnaires. Vice President of Sustainability, Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility. Do you think it's important? Johnson & Johnson. When it says Vice President Johnson & Johnson was there, was the Vice President of Supply Chain Sustainability. So remember, this is what they're looking for. Of course, they expect you to have gotten good grades in your courses, but the people that are going to get the jobs are those that can formulate opinions and make ethical decisions. All right, planning, controlling, and scheduling. Okay, what is project scheduling? So before you can start the project, you need to know when it's going to end. Well, the only way you can do that is to identify the key tasks and allocate a certain amount of time for each one of those activities. What's a really good tool to use in scheduling, doing project scheduling? Somebody? How about, now don't get nervous, how about a Gantt chart? A Gantt chart? Somebody? Anybody? A Gantt chart? Yes, Michael? Okay. Yeah, so in terms of scheduling, that's an example of a Gantt chart. So what you do is you identify the major components of the project. So there might be, let's say, 5 key milestones for a given project. And then what? Then each one of those milestones you break down into tasks. Like, what are the tasks that need to be completed to achieve that milestone? There might be 30 tasks. So there might only be 5 milestones, but for each one of those milestones, there might be 30 to 50 tasks. That's why you need to get a little bit more sophisticated in the scheduling and the planning.
I was going to say, example, using somehow.
Which one?
It's like January, February, and I guess starting in March, April,
Well, so this is the thing. So there's predecessor tasks. So before some tasks can be completed, other tasks need to be completed. So for prototyping, you see, we can't start until, like you're saying, until like March. Well, we can't start the prototyping until we make some progress in the design. So you guys see what Michael is saying? What Michael is drawing our attention to is that everything isn't starting in January here. So design starts in January. Well, you can't build a prototype. You know what a prototype is? It's like a sample of the product. So it can be made out of clay, it can be made out of plastic, it can be made out of cardboard, it can be made out of wax, you can make it out of a lot of different materials. But it's not a production product, so you didn't make it on the assembly line, for example. But you can't develop a prototype until you made some progress in the design. Now, we didn't finalize the design yet because what we need to do is develop prototypes and then test them. We're going to take them out to research. We're showing it to consumers, for example. Questions about that? So you need to identify all the tasks. And that's why, for example, Microsoft Project is very helpful. And they have these charts also. They have these Gantt charts. So the thing is that when you have a big project like that, you need to have a way to keep track of all the tasks and how long they're going to take. You know, when it's just, if it's just 5 tasks, that's one thing. But when each of the major milestones has like 30 tasks very easily, 30 to 40 tasks, then it's like, whoa, I just feel this is like out of control. You can't sort of eyeball that anymore and put it on your daily planner. You need to have some type of software that can help. Okay.
For simple purposes, if you didn't want to use the word name, could you use the colors to identify different time frames?
Yeah, you can change the colors on these too. Absolutely.
So that's still
Well, so the thing is that you still need to identify all the tasks. Once you identify all the tasks, you have to assign a certain amount of time for each one. 1 day, 1 week, and not just the touch time. The touch time is actually that physical, numerical time that it takes to complete a task. But the time that we need to record is how long is it going to actually take us to get done. Do you see the difference? So it's like students that come to my office, they say, this will only take you 5 minutes. I say, yeah, but I have 50 like these on my desk. Right? So it will only take 5 minutes. Yes, that's true. Maybe, probably, hopefully. But I have to do the other 50 first. So that means it's not going to be completed until some other time. The next day or 2 days later. It's important to know where the bottlenecks are and what the predecessor tasks are, because what's so amazing about this illustration is it points out exactly what Michael was suggesting, is that all these tasks can't be completed at the same time. So now where possible, we want to parallel path the tasks. We want to parallel path the tasks, which means that we want to complete the tasks simultaneously. So while Mike is completing those tasks, Sama is completing these tasks, Alexis is completing these tasks, but then there's some tasks that can't be completed until they complete those tasks first. So we need to identify that. We need to know which tasks precede which other tasks, and where there could be a bottleneck. And that's how we're going to be able to determine how long it's going to take to complete the project. So it's not just 1 day for this, 2 days for this, 3 days for that, 6 days for this. No, it's got to take into account the fact that some tasks can't be completed. They may not be able to be completed until 3 months. You can't start that for 3 months until the other team members did what they were supposed to do. Questions about that? Forecasting. Nobody has a crystal ball, but some companies are better at forecasting than others. Like Walmart, for example. They have a really advanced state-of-the-art forecasting system that allows them to almost anticipate the demand that they're seeing in their stores. So nobody wants to hold inventory. remember last time we talked about the issue of inventory?
Just in time.
So just in time, people want, retailers, for example, want to receive the inventory just in time. So they don't want to hold a lot of inventory. Why? What does that mean to be holding inventory? Mike?
You're not moving it, so it's just taking space, so it's also inventory which is valuable time.
Well, it's taking up space, but some space you need to allocate to hold in, to sell product, but
You don't have liquid cash.
say it again.
You do not have liquid cash.
It's tying up our cash. So the inventory, the reason people don't want to hold inventory is because they don't want to tie up their cash.
Okay, I was going to say, consignment, they don't actually hold merchandise.
Yes, consignment, so that's become more and more popular as retailers have struggled to survive economic recent downturns of the last 5 to 7 years. So inventory management. What is the 4 types of inventory that we identified last time? Who remembers? 4 types of inventory. Yes, raw materials. What was that? What's the next one? Work in progress. Finished goods. Right, maintenance. Those are, like, for example, the cleaning supplies that are used to clean the factory, oil for the machinery. All right, let's talk about the product life cycle. This is actually in chapter 5. Okay, there's several stages of the product life cycle. The first stage is introduction. What this chart shows us is, on this axis, is time. So we're going from time 0 to period 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That period could be months, it could be years. And on this axis here is sales, units sold. Okay, so this is going to be units sold. So what this suggests is that as we move forward in time, from let's say year 1 to year 2 to year 3, that the number of units sold increases until it reaches this point here, which is what? Maturity. So the first stage is introduction. Right, this is in chapter 5. Introduction. The second stage, so that follows, is growth. So during the growth stage, the number of units being sold increases. And then, depending on the product category, you could reach maturity in a year, you could reach maturity in 10 years. You could reach maturity and then have a very rapid decline, or the product could be in maturity for 50 years. What maturity means is that sales are no longer significantly increasing. Does it mean that there's no increase? No. It might still be increasing like 2%, but it's not increasing 20% anymore. So the product is mature. Now, for some products, they mature and then they decline. And then at some point, they become obsolete. Like, remember I told you VCRs. Some of you said, what's a VCR? So video cassette recorders, those products have become obsolete. Those are VHS players. DVD players. DVDs in general are on the decline. Why?
Blu-ray, streaming.
Streaming, yeah, absolutely. Everything is digital. All right, let's talk about these different types of charts and drawings. Questions about the product life cycle? All right, write this down. An assembly drawing. What is an assembly drawing? It's an exploded view of the product. So if you took apart the product, loosened all the screws and bolts, and pulled all the pieces apart, it's an exploded view of the product. That's an assembly drawing. You ever put together a bookcase? You bought something from IKEA that you had assembled? They include the assembly drawing, which shows that exploded view. Now, an assembly chart is different. They use this in the factory to show how to actually put the product together. So it's a schematic that shows how the product is assembled.
So IKEA is
Well, they would support that, but they may not necessarily include the assembly chart. But yeah, you would, anyway, saying the instructions that you get with IKEA furniture or other ready-to-assemble furniture would be something that you would include with the assembly chart. And the route sheet is very important because it lists all operations necessary to produce the product. Now, all these things you need to have before you start producing the product. The people on the assembly line, they need to see this. How are they going to know how to put the product together? How are they going to know what operations need to occur? What tells them whether or not to punch holes in the shoes? How are they going to know if it's not on the route sheet? Yep, Becky. Yeah, the assembly chart is a step-by-step how you put it together, and the route sheet tells us there's a list of all the steps that need to occur. Isn't that almost like an assembly line? Like an assembly line? Yeah, they might be. Some products are lend themselves to being produced on the assembly line. Companies have been focusing on quality, trying to produce products that are high quality. And the way that they do that varies from industry to industry. But one of the ways that it's measured is through an external organization. And companies that are focusing on total quality management, TQM, attempt to get certification like ISO 9000 What is ISO 9000? Is a set of quality standards. So it's not enough that the company says that they're focusing on quality, that quality is a priority for them. They try to get a certification to substantiate their claim. So if you have ISO 9000 certification, that's something that's very credible and prestigious. A lot of companies can't get ISO 9000 certification. Okay, write this down. Operations management is applicable to all firms. Operations management is applicable to all firms, whether it's manufacturing or the service business. Stakeholders. Stakeholders can be employees, suppliers, the community, shareholders. All those are examples of stakeholders. So importantly, a stakeholder is more than just a shareholder. So like in the Johnson & Johnson credo, and maybe the vice president of J&J might come here, she talked this semester. In their credo, it talks specifically about their stakeholders, not just their shareholders. It says, of course, we have an obligation to our shareholders. Why? They own the company. But they said it's not enough to make money. We have obligations to our suppliers and to our customers and to our employees. And so they really walk the talk when it comes to ethics and corporate social responsibility. When consumers were taking Tylenol and dying, you know what they did? They said, put the floor mats in the trunk of your car. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? When Toyota had a problem with their accelerator, the car would go from like 0 to 120 in 6 seconds. So they had a press conference and said, we determined what the problem is. It's not a faulty accelerator, it's the floor mats. Take your floor mats and put it in the trunk of your car. That was their way of dealing with an ethical dilemma. Right? Remember those scenarios that I had asked for your opinion as it relates to, well, is it okay to do something unethical as long as you could get away with it? Is that okay? Or does the company have a responsibility to tell people about a problem? Do they have a responsibility to apologize? You need to have opinions about all of those topics, because remember, that's what executives get paid millions of dollars for, is for their opinion. So that was the way they dealt with the problem. What Johnson & Johnson did when they found out that people were dying from taking Tylenol is, without doing any investigating, they just recall all the product. And it cost them millions and millions of dollars. But they believe that they have a responsibility to their stakeholders. It turned out that it wasn't even their fault. Somebody had tampered with the product. It didn't happen in the factory, and they didn't know. They said, we can't wait. It might take 6 months to find out why this happened. By then, all our customers could be dead. So they decided to recall the product. But not every company can do that. So stakeholders, there's a question about stakeholders on the exam. Why do multinational organizations go from country to country in an effort to reduce costs? How is it that they're able to reduce costs? Multinational organizations, how is it that what are the opportunities for them to reduce costs? Yeah, cheap labor, this one, definitely. Right, so lower transportation costs, lower tax rates, lower labor rates, what else?
Environmental factors.
Yeah, absolutely, environmental issues. So in some markets, regulations are less stringent than in others.
Professor, what about the ethical issue?
The what?
Ethical issue. Because they invade they invaded their businesses in some country like China. I've recently heard that news about they were Apple, those of the employees in China were discriminated and segregated by the telephone company called Foxconn, and that they don't get good paid, and also there is no such qualitative, housing they got, and so on. So ethically, even though they have cheap labor, that Apple has been going and invest their business in some countries, but ethically they are totally distracted. That's what I think.
Yeah, that could absolutely be a problem. So some companies, better companies, what they do is they work closer to their suppliers to make sure that they're behaving in a way that's considered to be ethical and legal. So for example, ensuring that they're not using child labor, for example. So they see that as part of their responsibility, and they hold themselves accountable. So you can't say, oh, well, that's why I have a supplier operating in the other side of the world, and so what they do is their business. It's considered acceptable there. No, but you have to hold your suppliers to higher standards. And also train them as well. So one of the things that Johnson & Johnson does, for example, is they teach their suppliers to become experts in supply chain management and operations management. So once they partner with them, for mutual success, and they realize that, a lot of their partners are not huge companies like they are. They're small companies, so what they do is they need to train them how to operate, how to do business for the big company. And that's something that they take very seriously. So that's an excellent point that you raised. So it's not just about lowering costs. If you're lowering costs and the suppliers are able to provide lower costs by doing things that are unethical, then that's not acceptable. But certainly lower wage costs, lower taxes, lower tariffs, less stringent regulations, those are all ways to cut costs. That's definitely a question on the exam. All right, the mission statement. Right, the mission statement tells us where the business is going, what is the nature of their business. So an organization's mission is to define the organization's purpose in society, what they do, which is different from the vision. Although I have to tell you that more and more those terms are being used interchangeably, the term mission and vision, but really they're not the same, because the mission talks about the industry and the function that the company provides today, and the vision is very much more focused on the future, where the company wants to be down the road. All right, who wants to read this? The mission statement from Merck Pharmaceuticals. Jackie, go ahead.
The mission of Merck is to provide society with superior products and services, innovation and solutions that improve the quality of life and satisfy customer needs, to provide employees with meaningful work and advancing opportunities, and investors with a superior rate of return.
And we got one more. Okay, so the mission focuses on the organization's purpose in society. The vision focuses on where the company wants to be in the future. When a firm produces a product with less raw material waste than its competitors do, this would be an example of low-cost leadership. Low-cost leadership does not mean low quality, it just means lower cost. Like, for example, Walmart. Walmart is able to sell the same products at a lower price because they're implementing a low-cost leadership strategy. They're able to operate, their operating costs are much lower than that of other retailers. So it's not that they're selling the products and making less money. No, they're not. They're still making money. It's just that their operating costs are lower. So if a firm is able to produce a product with less raw material waste than its competitors do, that's an example of low-cost leadership. Are you still taking notes? If that's a question on the exam. Okay, Michael Porter, he has this model that he created called the 5 forces model, which focuses on market attractiveness and competition. There's 5 components. Supplier power, buyer power, sometimes referred to as customer power, supplier power, customer power, the threat of new entrants into the category, so the threat of competitors entering a category, the existence of substitute products, and the level of rivalry. So the level of rivalry, okay, let's look at that. So one of Porter's 5 forces, when we're trying to understand the level of market attractiveness, one of the questions on the exam is about Porter's 5 forces model. The level of rivalry, how intense is competition? Now, if there's 100 competitors in a category, I would suggest that rivalry is not intense. Now, take for example, however, telecommunication. How many competitors are there in that category? Like basically 3 or 4. So AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, and then the rest are fall into the seriously category. Right? So there's basically 4 competitors. So the rivalry is very intense. So Michael Porter says when the number of competitors is but a handful, rivalry is intense, and that makes for an unattractive market. Just on that one metric. Now he's still said 5 different. That's just to rate a market on 5 different aspects. So one of them is the level of rivalry. So in terms of the level of rivalry, it's intense. Now what about the potential for new entrants? How likely is it that new telecommunication companies can enter the market at this point? New wireless communication providers? Not too likely, really. You know, the government wants to stimulate innovation and competition, and supposedly competitors can, well, these competitors, of course, they share and buy access from each other. So do you know what that means? Like, there's not enough, nobody could afford to, like, build all the towers that are necessary.
So you use each other's towers.
Huh?
You use each other's towers.
Yeah, you use each other's towers.
Right. Like T-Mobile uses Verizon and so on. And it's also tracking level.
It's right.
You use everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the government orchestrated that so that competition could exist. Otherwise, it would be problematic. Now, there's a difference between buyer power and supplier power. Now, take for example, Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble is the marketer of the #1 brand of consumer products, consumer household products around the world. So for example, Tide, the #1 brand of laundry detergent. Charmin, the #1 brand of toilet tissue. Scope, the #1 brand of mouthwash. Crest, the #1 toothpaste. And the list just goes on and on. It's like really ridiculous. So they've accomplished quite a lot. So now that being said, when they go to retailers and want retailers to carry their product, do you think that as a supplier that they have a high level of power or a low level of power? Yeah, they have a high level of power because they have in their portfolio all these power brands. So Michael Porter says, when you're looking at the attractiveness of the market, if there's a high level of supplier power, that's not good. Why? What's the implication? That's what? Yeah, so you have to compete with them, and I think Jennifer's saying, oh, higher prices, right? That when they have that kind of power, so whatever they say is basically what you pay, right?
Basically a monopoly.
Yeah, it's in some categories it could be like a monopoly. Like a monopoly. It wouldn't be a monopoly, but it's like a monopoly in that they can charge what they want. Now, what about the existence of substitute products? Another one of the forces that Michael Porter identified is substitute products. He says that if substitute products exist, then what? That makes the market less attractive. Why? Because instead of buying milk, they could buy orange juice, right? So do you think people consider orange juice to be a substitute for milk?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Yeah, we're cereal boy.
You can't bring me cereal? But what about the fact that they market orange juice now with vitamin A, fortified with vitamin A, vitamin D, calcium? Isn't that the reason we usually drink milk? Because it has calcium, because it has vitamin A, because it has vitamin D. Now you can drink orange juice, right?
with him, it's for the cereal.
You can't put orange juice in your coffee? No? Okay. Cheerios and orange juice. All right, we were talking about the product life cycle. When the product is in decline, one strategy we could focus on is minimizing costs. So cost minimization is, I would say, an appropriate strategy when the product is in decline.
Professor, what chapter that Michael thinks the 5 components are?
What was that?
What chapter that Michael thinks the 5 components are?
What chapter is the 5 forces? Is it, which one is it? 6? I think it's chapter 6. Everybody has the book, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, of course they do. 2 copies of each.
Can you repeat the last thing you said about the product in decline, please?
Yeah, so a product that's in decline, like DVDs, so minimizing cost is an appropriate strategy.
Once the product is in decline,
What was that? When a product is in decline?
minimize the cost is an effective strategy.
Right.
Is that-
Yep. Well, it would be a good idea to lower the price so that you can get more consumers to purchase. So what Alicia suggested is that the reason you would want to focus on cost minimization from an operations management standpoint is because from a marketing standpoint, we're getting pressure to lower the price at retail. That's why from an operations management standpoint, why we need to do what Daniel suggested and Mike suggested at the beginning is produce more units in the same period of time or produce the same number of units but be able to do it quicker. That's an example of minimizing costs. So we're minimizing our costs by doing that. And there's other cost reductions, like for example, I'm getting a better price on the materials. But the reason for doing that is because when the product is in decline, it's likely we're going to be under pressure to lower the price at retail. So remember when we looked at this Gantt chart? So those bands there, some span 2 months, right? 3 months, that's the duration. The duration for those milestones in the project. So that's what that illustrates. The duration of those activities. suggests that design is going to take 6 months. Prototyping can happen simultaneously the entire time, but in March and April, design and prototyping can occur simultaneously. But prototyping overall is expected to take 2 months. That's what this visual shows us. That's a visual way for us to see how long it takes to complete these activities. So what's so helpful to us is that it allows us to see at a glance, right? Visually, it allows us to see at a glance how long it takes to complete each of these activities, and also during which periods of time they're going to be completed. So we need to know, when possible, if we're going to be able to parallel path activities. What's your name? We need to parallel path activities. So as much as possible, we need to be parallel pathing activities, which means that we're completing multiple activities at the same time. So design is occurring at the same time as testing. But then you see that the production period occurs after design, prototyping, testing, devising. Now, production can be a very lengthy process. Did we talk last time about the squish elbows? Those tickle me elbow things? That it takes months and months and months to produce those. I remember I told you that it takes 30 days to 45 days to ship from China to the United States, so that if you plan on selling it in early December, then you would have had to ship the product by the end of September, early October, the latest. Otherwise, forget it. If it gets here in January, that's too late, right?
That might actually happen. I was reading this week that a teacher wanted to bankrupt, and they're supposed to get out. So what's happening is now some stores, they get just a small until they're
Yeah, that's the big problem.
Yeah. That was the game.
So remember I told you it takes time to complete activity. It takes time to produce each unit. So they produce a certain number of units, and then they ship those. Maybe they'll ship, let's say, 500,000 units, 500,000 typical and ship those. But they still keep producing them. What are some of the ethical issues that might occur in small projects, large projects? What do you think?
You might try to get something done at a certain time, by speeding the process.
Yeah, I mean, it could result in a safety issue, could impact quality. Sometimes expense reports are inflated, which means that things are put on somebody's expense report that is more than what it actually is. So they said the expense was 550, but it was only actually 150. Gifts from contractors. So if they buy you a cookie, that's one thing. If they buy you a Rolex, right? That's a different issue. I would be concerned about that. Why? What's the issue? So what? Why should they buy you a Rolex? Huh? Yeah, that they're trying to influence your decision. Maybe to use that as a contractor or supplier. sometimes, to follow up on what Daniel is saying, is sometimes in order, the motivation for them to cut corners is because they're trying to get a bonus. So there's already been a bonus that's been established and they meet certain criteria. But when they fall behind in the project, what do? To speed things up or to produce more units, is they do unethical things so that they could still get their bonus. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say exactly what you said. So we're like building and doing that.
Yeah, exactly. The building, same thing. Okay, before we were talking about planning, scheduling, controlling. When we're talking about controlling, what is it that we're trying to control? The costs, certainly, the resources, the quality, the budgets. So one of the questions on the exam is about the controlling aspect of a project. Cost, resources. So controlling involves the close monitoring of costs, resources, budgets, quality. So controlling a project, we talk about scheduling, and again, this is a Gantt chart. When we're controlling, in the controlling mode as an operations manager, that involves closely monitoring the cost, so what we're paying, the quality of what is being done, the budgets, and also resources. So all of those. All right, three major types of forecasts: economic, technological, and demand. When we talked about the quantitative forecasting and quantitative forecasting, those are examples of demand forecasts. Those are examples of demand forecasts. We're trying to predict what the demand is going to be for our product and service. So, three major types of forecasting include economic, technological, and demand. The one that we're really focusing on is the quantitative and qualitative demand forecasting. Like, for example, qualitative forecasting, qualitative demand forecasting. When we talk about the jury of executive opinion, so we have groups of high-level experts that come together to estimate what demand will be. The Delphi method, which involves a number of different participants, including maybe the vice president of marketing, sales managers, to estimate the level of demand. And then the sales force composite, when you're a particular unit, a particular item that you're selling, what you do is you get each sales to provide their opinion as to how many units they think they're going to be able to sell in their market, or the retailer that they're servicing, whether it's Walmart or Kmart or Target or Best Buy or Macy's. And then what we do is we add up all of those inputs to get a forecast. But those are qualitative forecasting methods. That's different from like moving averages, which is a quantitative forecasting method. That uses actual historical data to try to anticipate demand by looking at what demand was previously. Now, one way is what's known as the naive approach. What is that? The naive approach basically says that whatever the demand was last year or last month is what it's going to be again. There's no reason to believe that at all. I mean, none whatsoever. I mean, just because you sold 100 million units last year, there's zero reason to believe that you're going to sell the same quantity again this year. And when we're talking about forecasting, the stage of the product life cycle that's going to focus the most on forecasting is the growth stage. So the growth stage of the product life cycle is when the focus is going to be on forecasting. So when the number of units that we're selling continues to grow, continues to increase, companies need to focus more and more on getting forecasting correct so that they know how many units to produce, and not just how many units to produce, but to make sure that they have the production capacity, that they have the ability to make enough units. Because most equipment is proprietary. And production equipment is expensive. You don't just walk into a store and say, yeah, give me one of these. I want to start selling wireless speakers. You want to purchase manufacturing equipment? The equipment is going to be made for you. Because nobody is going to hold manufacturing equipment in a warehouse that's sold for $500,000 or $1 million, waiting for us to show up and say, yeah, give me one of those and one of those. They're not going to make to stop. What they're going to do is make to order. So when they get the order and you give them money, then they'll do it. But it might take 6 months for them to make that piece of equipment. So that's why you need to get a jump on forecasting. You need to understand not just how many units you're going to produce, but your manufacturing capacity, your ability to produce the units that are needed.
Isn't it hardest to forecast the future of very growth stage? You don't really know the environment factors that are going to encourage growth when rate it or not?
Yeah, well, you would know what the environmental factors are. Well, you can anticipate how they would impact, but we may not know whether or not there's going to be a recession. That would certainly impact our sales. Usually we don't know until a couple of quarters after the fact that, oh gee, we're experiencing a recession. But certainly it's difficult. And very few companies can do it well. And those who can't say that, no, we try to create a level of scarcity with the customer base, which means they can afford that demand. They have not enough production capacity, you know, like with Apple. Why don't they have enough? Why don't they produce enough iPhones? Because they can produce enough iPhones. Why would you turn away a sale? What, you want to create hype? You want, really?
Right, so I was going to ask you about the limited edition. To sell something limited edition. So they do that just fine? And do you forecast that you're just going to sell all?
Well, limited edition they might produce a fixed quantity, like they might just produce 1 million units. But think about like the iPhone 7, for example. Presumably, they don't have enough capacity to make the number of units that are needed to meet demand. Right? So now the thing is, like I was telling you about, when they start to make the product, so it launched on what, September 16th? And so when do you think that it's supposed to be in stores on September 16th? When do they have to start making it? So they would have had to start making it like in June, right? The end of June, early July, to be able to have the product in the store by mid-September. But, so how many could they make? That's the whole idea, again, going back to productivity. How many units can you make in an hour? How many units can you make in a day? How many units can you make in a week? Well, then you have to ask yourself, well, if that's based on that production capacity, whether or not we need to increase capacity. And so, but what's the risk of doing that? What's the risk of increasing capacity? Because you might spend $1 billion to increase capacity, and some companies have done this. Like American automakers. Yeah, so like American automakers, the problem, the issue that American automakers have had over the last decade is that in the 1970s, they were a market share leader. They built this huge manufacturing capacity, spent billions of dollars to be able to produce billions and millions of cars. Well, that was a good thing at that time, but then they started selling fewer cars. Why? Because people started buying cars from Toyota and Nissan and other companies. So they lost a lot of market share. But what happened to those big manufacturing facilities? They're still there. They're still there. Now that's a huge fixed cost for the company. It can't go away. You can't make it go away. So that's the risk that of making too much capacity, is that you'll have excess capacity. But you always have to have some degree of excess capacity. You need to have some sort of buffer. But not being able to meet demand is not acceptable. Some companies are arrogant though, they think, well, the customer will always be there. So they didn't get it this month, they'll get it next month. They're not going to go without an ENISA. So they didn't get it in September, they'll get it in October, they'll wait, they'll get it in November. I'll make them buy that in January. Right? It's true. All right, let's keep rolling. So, the growth stage is when companies start to refocus on their forecasting. Because operations managers have got to be able to anticipate changes in the volume of the product, right? So that's the quantity, product opportunities, the mix of of products. So the mix between I7 and I7 plus, I6 and I6 plus, I5 and I5S. So operations managers have got to be able to anticipate changes in the product mix, the product volume, the product opportunities, and also the product themselves. How many people think that's not going to be a question on the exam? Raise your hand. All right.
Could you repeat that? Sorry.
Can you repeat that? All right. Operations managers, they have to be able to anticipate changes, right? So then you were saying, well, this is going to be kind of problematic. We've got to anticipate the impact of environmental changes, technological changes, when we're forecasting in the growth stage. I said, yes, that's true. So operations managers do need to anticipate the product mix, right? The variety of products that they're going to produce. That's the product mix. So operations managers have to be able to anticipate changes in the product mix, right? That's what I was mentioning, the iPhone 6 Plus, the iPhone 6, the iPhone 7, the iPhone 7 Plus. So they have to be able to anticipate changes in the product mix, the products themselves, like the different features that are with the new iPhone 7. The product volume, so the number of units that are produced. On cross-functional teams, this is the way business is done. On cross-functional teams, there's somebody from the marketing department, there's somebody from the sales department, there's somebody from the finance department, somebody from industrial design, somebody from operations. When we meet as a cross-functional team and we're talking about the opportunity and the concept, one of the things that comes up is what's known as, you ready? Design for manufacturability. That means, you know, there's a lot of different ways that we could make the product, but we have all the right people in the room. Why don't we make sure that the way it's designed is in a way that optimizes our manufacturing capabilities? So the product should be designed for manufacturability, and what's sometimes called value engineering, which means that the way we manufacture it is going to reduce our costs and reduce the complexity. So reducing the complexity of a product, or reducing the complexity of a product is often referred to as design for manufacturability. If we operate a hamburger stand, a veggie burger stand, let's say we have a veggie burger stand. We have this veggie burger stand, and we sell 15 different burgers. 15 different burgers. And it uses 7 different ingredients. How would we describe this design? So we have 15 different burgers, 7 ingredients. So 7 ingredients, but 15 different burgers. Yes, modular. You want to elaborate? So what Daniel said is that if we have a business that uses 7 ingredients and offers, right, uses only 7 ingredients but has 15 different burgers, that would be known as a modular design.
Like when you have components that can be used interchangeably in different kinds of products.
Yes, you could develop a product in different combinations. So you only have 7 ingredients, but you're able to make 15 different types of burgers. That's an example of modular design. That's a question on the exam.
Wait, I think I missed part of it.
Okay, so modular design means that different component parts are used interchangeably. And so, for example, if you're only using 7 ingredients, that's what allows you, for example, to make 15 different types of burgers with only 7 ingredients. So that's an example. That will be on the exam. Now, when we're developing new products, sometimes we have to work outside the organization. So an external product development strategy. An external product development strategy is known as an alliance. So an alliance is an example of an external product development strategy. Now, internally developed products, new internally developed products, have the highest product development risk. So the highest product development risk, the strategy with the highest product development risk, are new internally developed products. You know, actually 50% of all the products fail. Are you surprised? Are you alive? An engineering drawing shows the dimensions, tolerances, materials, and finishes of a component part. An engineering drawing shows the dimensions, tolerances, materials, and finishes of a component. No thanks, I don't need any words, but I fall on the floor here. Don't do it again. So did we get that? Really? Again? Engineering drawings? An engineering drawing shows the dimensions, like the height, width, depth. So an engineering drawing shows the dimensions. So one of the questions on the exam asks about the dimensions, tolerances, materials, and finishes that are included in an engineering drawing.
Can you give an example of the tolerance?
So the tolerance, for example, has to do with within a certain range. So like the product could be between 9 1/4 and 9 1/2 inches. So remember, it's an engineering drawing. So we need to specify when we're producing the product, when it's going to be within process and outside of the process. So we have to give ourselves some, like, wiggle room there, some leeway. That's the level of tolerance. It might be 1/4 of an inch. It might be a 1/16 of an inch. It might be a 32nd of an inch.
It wouldn't be like, for example, if you're developing a hammock amount of weight that it can hold,
Oh, okay, that could be too. So depending on the product, so Alexis is saying, what about if it was like a hammock? So how many pounds? Can it hold 150 pounds? Can it hold 250 pounds? Could it hold 350 pounds? So when we manufacture the product, we need to make sure that we're able to accommodate what was specified. What's on the bill of material? So on the bill of material, it's actually very interesting. On the bill of material, what it does is it lists all the components. So the bill of material lists all the components, how many of each. So size 2 screws, so let's say like 12 size 2 screws, 24 size 3 screws, 36 1.5 inch finishing nails. So it describes all the components and the quantity. That's what's on the bill of material. The quantity that's needed to make the product. The assembly chart we said shows how a product is assembled. Just like fixed costs are costed fixed. But importantly, fixed costs are costs that don't vary with the production volume. So fixed costs are costs that don't vary with the production volume. Like that $5 billion that you have tied up in the manufacturing facility. No matter how many units you make, and that's the scary part, whether it's 1 unit or 1 billion units or 1 billion units, that fixed cost is the same. The route sheet says, provides a sequence of operations necessary to produce the component. Right, the sequence of operations necessary. An assembly drawing shows an exploded view. Okay, so let's say we have our own sandwich shop, and there's a poster on the wall. And for each sandwich on the menu, there's a sketch of the ingredients and how they are to be arranged to make the sandwich. What is that? A route sheet, an assembly chart, an assembly drawing, a work order, or a bill of material. Assembly drawing. Assembly drawing. Is it midnight yet? It's midnight yet. Let's say, you know that General Electric so I may not have any voice by the end of this class, but at least you'll have almost all the questions on the exam. You won't study anyway, it doesn't matter. They don't even believe it. It's not too real there. All right, so General Electric, they make dishwashers. They decided to recall 3 million dishwashers. It's going to cost the company more to repair the product than the actual dishwasher. This is an example of internal failure course, appraisal course, prevention course, cost of poor quality is underestimated. So in order for them to recall the 3 million dishwashers, it's going to cost them more to repair these defective dishwashers than the cost of the actual product. So this means that they underestimated the yo-yos they have working in the manufacturing facility, underestimated the impact of poor quality.
Underestimated the impact of what?
Poor quality.
Thank you.
So you might say, okay, so what's the big deal? All right, this one is not perfect. Well, now they're going to have to recall it. And to recall it, it's going to cost them more than the cost of the product. So there is a cost of poor quality. When a company becomes ISO 9000 certified, remember I told you they have to have an on-site assessment, right? So it's not just internal. Of course they do their own internal assessment, but they do their own self-audit, but they have to have an on-site assessment from an external organization. They have to document their quality procedures. So that's going to be reviewed. And they're going to have an ongoing series of audits of their products or services. So there's going to be an ongoing audit of their products and services to make sure that they're actually of a high quality. So to get the ISO 9000 certification, they actually test the products and services to see if your quality process really delivered. So it's nice, of course, if you have a quality process, that's great. But if you're not delivering quality products, that's a problem. So they want to see how many of them have defects. So of course, every company has some kind of, you think, some kind of quality control process. But with ISO 9000, what they do is they actually test the products and services. They look at your documented quality control program. They test the services. They come on location. All of that has to happen to become ISO 9000 certified and to be me certified. Are you familiar with the acronym JIT? JIT? Just in time. TQM? PDCA? What happened? What happened? Nobody knows? Plan, do, check, act. Yep. Plan. Plan, do, check, and then act. So you have to have a plan. You have to then do what it says in the plan properly, and then take an action, take some kind of action after that.
Can you repeat the one before?
Which one? ISO 9000? Not that one. Okay, that one. GIT is just in time. Just in time. So you want to get the inventory arriving just in time when you need those component parts in the manufacturing facility. For example. And TQM is total quality management, a commitment to zero defects. And it goes beyond, actually, the commitment to quality. It's a commitment to quality that goes beyond internal company issues to suppliers and customers. So TQM is not just about I'm drunk now. I swear to drunk on my God. All right, so total quality management is not just internal focus. Total quality management is a program that focuses on suppliers and customers as well. So it goes beyond internal total quality. Because think about it, our quality is only as good as the quality of our suppliers, right? So if we're not getting quality component parts from our suppliers, then our finished good product is not going to be of a high quality. So we have to make sure that our suppliers are also focused on total quality management. Do you know what a histogram is? You do? Those bar charts, sometimes it refers to a Pareto chart. Good. You have a frequency distribution table. Service blueprinting focuses on the provider's interaction with the customer. Service blueprinting. Now, as part of that, what organizations do is they create touch point maps. What's a touch point map? A touch point map shows every point that a customer will interact with the organization. So whether it's in the store, whether it's on the company's website, whether it's on the phone, that's what a touch point map is. A flexible manufacturing system uses an automated work cell. So a flexible manufacturing system uses an automated work cell controlled by electronic signals.
Automated what?
A work cell. So a work cell is, when we're producing a product, there's a number of pieces of equipment that need to be utilized, so they group together in, let's say, an area that's maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. And what do you have in there? 5 pieces of equipment. That's considered a work cell. Then, next to that, there's another 10-foot section. And what's in there? Also 6 more pieces of equipment. Focuses on the provider's interaction with the customer. Service blueprint focuses on the supplier's interaction with the customer. Are you making a joke? Leave the jokes to me. Okay. Here we go. This is from chapter 10. Job enlargement. Job enlargement. Right, job enlargement. Job enlargement. So one of the things that managers do to increase productivity is job enlargement, which is basically what they do is increase the number of tasks, but at the same level. So job enlargement means more work for an employee at the same level. Job enrichment is more work, but at a higher level. Usually that's means you're getting room for a promotion. So job enrichment is definitely more work, but it's more work at a higher level. So like when your manager is not there, you fill in. Or even when your manager is there, maybe your manager gives you some of her tasks to complete. And I know I hear a lot of times people grumble and say, why do I need to do her work? Like, it's so silly. Like, don't you get it? Like, once you're able to be able to do her job, then she could get promoted. And then you could get promoted to her job. Right? Like, I don't understand why I have to do her job. What does she get paid for? Yeah, you were going to get promoted, but not anymore.
I think your team is going to have 6 months.
Hello? Hello, Dr. Scott? Feed me up! Feed me up! Hello?
He's trying to say that.
Oh, that's not good. That's not When we're evaluating jobs as an operations manager, remember we said planning, organizing, leading, controlling, staffing, right? We said staffing. We need to look at the jobs and evaluate them. We need to look at the characteristics of the job. One of the characteristics that's talked about in chapter 10 is skill variety. Skill variety. The variety of talent that's needed to complete the task for the job. So is the level of skill variety high or low? If the level of skill variety is high, like you need to use a variety of different skills to complete the task, then that job is considered to be better. It's more likely that employees will be motivated if they're using more skills, a variety of skills. Job identity is the level at which the individual perceives that they're completing all the tasks for a particular assignment. So, for example, job identity involves completing tasks A through C. Generally, if the level of job identity is high, it's going to be more rewarding for employees. So in other words, instead of one employee completing A through C, and another employee completing D through F, and another employee completing G through M, one employee would complete all aspects. And that would mean the level of job identity would be higher. That's usually considered to be more motivating. The next characteristic that's discussed has to do with job significance. The impact that the job has on the company So what is the level of job significance? And the level of autonomy. So if there's a high level of autonomy, the level of job satisfaction is going to be higher. So the level of autonomy means how much flexibility do you have to work on your own, to work independently, without the boss literally standing over your shoulder or checking backwards every 10 minutes. And feedback, the level of feedback. If there's a high level of feedback, if feedback is given on a regular basis, and I don't mean annually, because that's not often enough. That could be regular, but not often enough. You should be meeting with your boss every week and getting feedback so you know how you're doing. But when employees are getting feedback on a regular basis, that's considered to be a better designed job.